What's up, Dream Builder? Are you someone who's interested in creating a life by your design through all things real estate? Well, I can assure you, you are in the right place. Join me, your host, Casanova Brooks. I'm an award-winning real estate agent and investor as we uncover the top tips, strategies, and the mindset of the top real estate entrepreneurs across the world. Stay locked in because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Nation? We are back again. In today's episode, we got an episode that I'm excited to learn about because it's a way that you've probably never heard about how you can build financial freedom, but at the same time, how you can build instant cash flow in the real estate world. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my brother and my sister, Mr. Bernard Jones and Miss Georgia. Am I saying that right, Georgia? Yes. Georgia Giles Jones?
Yes.
That's a tongue twister right there. Please help me. Yes, please help me in welcoming Dream Nation as well. You want to go ahead and say what's up to Dream Nation?
Hey, how y'all doing? We definitely appreciate y'all taking time on y'all day having us here today.
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. So I want to start off, and the way that I always do that is I compare us as entrepreneurs, thought leaders, change makers to superheroes. And the reason being is because we're constantly flying around the world. We're putting on our cape. And we're trying to solve some of the world's biggest problems. And so I know that that's what you all have been doing from multiple angles. But the question that I always pose is, we know if you've seen your journey or if you've seen your program or anything about the recovery health, we know who those superheroes is on the outside, just like we know who Superman is. But we a lot of the times don't know who that Clark Kent or that Lois Lane or Wonder Woman is on the backside. So my question to you both is, behind the scenes, who is that Clark Kent and that Lois Lane?
Well, it's just us, just trying to make a difference, just a little bit about us, just wanting to do something different. And we stumbled across the recovery and us both growing up with people who struggle with addiction. Like, how can we help, So that's how this all started for us.
Yeah, it was like,
go ahead.
Oh, it was like with us, it was an opportunity because we had a house that we had owned, but the house had really outgrew us. And we didn't want to do traditional landlord because, the turnarounds, if the tenant damaged the property, things like that. And we didn't like the profit margins. And then someone else told us about recovery homes. We did our research and we just took it around.
Got it. So talk to me about when you first decided to start this. You say you didn't like the profit margins. What does a profit margin look like in a recovery home? Like, why should people be looking into recovery homes from a cash flow standpoint?
All right. So from a cash flow perspective, say our first house, we had we had 12 residents in our home. We were able to get 12 residents. We got like a $3,500 square feet house. So we able to, people not tied in, they not tied in the house or anything. So it's real spacious. So we was able to get 12 people. So in our, the rent that we charge or the housing fees, when we don't say rent, we say housing fees. We charge anywhere between $650 to $750 per month. So for our first house that we got started with, we was able to make $8,200 growth every month though. So after expenses, we was making like $5,900 a month. So compare that to a regular renter or a landlord where their profit margins may be anywhere from $300 to $700 per month. So you see the difference between the two from a cash flow perspective.
Got it. Wow. So when you say you were able to get 12 residents in there, is that like a 6-bedroom home, but you were putting 2 per bedroom? Or how are you able, if somebody's looking at it right now and they say, okay, I got a 4-bedroom house that's 2,000 square feet. What could I maybe get as far as that?
Let me just kind of scoot back. So
yeah,
just because we're kind of saying recovery house. So just to kind of give a definition. So the recovery houses that we do, so kind of just backing up. So we both was at a place where we're like, okay, this house is too big. We're tired of, kind of doing the paycheck to paycheck. How can we do something different? So when we say, oh, we could be landlords, let's be a landlord, but we're like, oh, we just updated this house. How do we feel about people moving in here in Minnesota? We're going to want like $2,500 for this and no one's going to pay that,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a 3-bedroom house at the time, 2 bedrooms downstairs that wasn't egress windows and stuff like that. So we're like, after we put the money in it, is it worth us making $400 or $500 a month if we do find someone to rent the house out? So then when we said like recovery housing, what is that? Someone mentioned that to us. We're like, well, what is that? I actually have a background with like transitional housing, shelters, halfway houses, and things like that. So when it was explained to us that people voluntarily, who's in the recovery community that no longer wants to use drug or alcohol, they'll come to a place where they can live as a family, where it's multiple people in the house so they can support each other. The house kind of runs itself, so it's not like it's a program per se. So when we talked about it, they're like, and you can put 2 people in the room because part of recovery is having connections with other people. So it's not like someone thinks they're living like renting a room or living in some type of hotel or anything like that. The purpose of them living is community living. So it's like, yeah, you can put 2 people in the room. It's different. You don't follow tenant landlord laws. You're like a landlord, but you're not a landlord. And it's a structured living. So it's like there's curfew. There's program requirements coming in and things like that, like 20 hours of activities, maybe 2 recovery meetings per month, because we're still focusing on the recovery. So it's very minimal that we do as the recovery home owner. So what we do is we provide a bed, a place for them to sleep at. So we don't provide services. And that's why we say we're like non-traditional landlords. So for us, the pros was, hey, we get to still be a part of the house. The residents will have chore, but it's not a program. So the rooms, we do put 2 people in a room. There's 2 beds. A single room will charge $750 a bed. And then the single beds, two twin beds would be like $650 each bed. So 1 bedroom, you're making $1,300 for that 1 bedroom. So for us, we're like, hey, let's open this house. We're going to use credit because we don't got all this money set off to the side. But our goal was to we wanted to make money. We needed something different for our lives. And that's why we was staring away from the landlord, because we're like, we got to have 20 houses to be making decent money, making $500 or $600 difference every month after we pay the mortgage. So that's how we do it. So we had a 3-bedroom house. We got egress windows. We have 12 beds. 8 of those beds are $650 each, and 4 of those beds are $750 each. So that's $8,200 a month. After we pay our bills and everything, $5,900 is in our pocket. The bonus thing is that we're saving lives. People are not using drugs and alcohol. People's connecting with their families. So it's like, it's the best of both worlds, because we're saving lives and we're saving our lives and our family as well by, becoming financially free, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes 100% sense. And I think somebody else is already excited and their wheels are spinning. So let me ask you, when you decide, if somebody decides, okay, I'm going to do this, I got a rental property right now, it's a 4-bedroom house. What is the first step in this? Like, how do I even find the people? Is it me reaching out to recovery centers, or like, how do I find even my first guest? And on top of that, how do I know that they can pay for this? Like, is there government programs to help them pay? Or how do I measure all of that?
So the first step is, I want to do a recovery house. Every city and state is different. So one of the things that we talk about, because we do have this e-course, is the reasonable accommodation process. So being an alcoholic or being addicted to drugs, it's considered a disability. And that's how you're able to have multiple people living in your house. So we're for profit. We're not nonprofit. We're not like Department of Human Service licensed. We don't have license. We don't have all these degrees. We don't have any of that. So the first step is finding out, like with zoning, what are the requirements to get this 4-bedroom to be able to have people, to be able to have more than 4 or 5 people, because in all cities and states, there's so many people that can live under the house that's not related. And that's the reasonable accommodation process. So then once you figure out that process, then you would do that process so you're able to have 10, 8, 12 people. Depending on the city and states, it can be up to 16 people. Maybe you can house in your house.
Wow.
And then from there, the community, so they have treatment centers, inpatient, which is normally like 30 days. And we all know that when you're trying to to stay sober and recovery, it's going to take more than 30 days to not use drugs. And a lot of times when someone's using drugs or alcohol, when they're ready to make the commitment, maybe their environment's not at that place with them. So if they go back to their house at their inpatient, well, maybe their husband or their wife or their kids or their grandma or grandpa, they're still maybe using drugs or drinking. So this allows a person to be in a safe place. And then it's something called aftercare treatment. So after inpatient, maybe you do aftercare where you go to a place every day for 5 hours maybe, and then to do the treatment. And then you come back to the recovery house and you're around people and they hold each other accountable, new bonds, new friendship, things like that. A lot of treatment centers, since it's really important about that environment when they leave treatment, is so key that it's kind of go hand in hand, that a lot of treatment centers have funding to help residents pay. So like in Minnesota, for example, if our housing fees are $650 per bed, the treatment center will pay $550. So then the resident pays $100 or $200 or $300, depending on what that difference is.
Yeah.
So the need is there. Treatment centers, I mean, there's like what, 19.9, 19.3 million Americans having a substance use disorder. Treatment centers are packed and full. So there's people going to treatment, and everybody who's at treatment, a lot of them don't have that safe place to be to continue their recovery journey.
Yeah.
Wow.
And another thing too is like, so say for instance, like if a treatment center does pay for some people, but a lot of people, they take their sobriety real serious. So even if they got to pay everything on their pocket, like say for instance that they graduate from treatment, they went there for 6 months and they were just paying, the $100 to $200 out of pocket. After that, they like, I'm not ready to get my own apartment yet. I'm not ready to move back in with mom yet, or father or husband or whatever. I want to stay here for another 6, 8, 12 months until I'm already mentally ready and I feel like I got the confidence. And they have paid everything out of their pocket, $650, $750, whatever the housing fee is.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with people paying. Like it's voluntary. It's something they want to do to be a better person. So they're looking at it as a life-saving change for them. So them paying their housing fees never an issue.
Got it. So talk to me about if you don't already have a property, but you still want to try this out. Like, is there something that you can maybe like sublease or something like that where you could talk to a landlord, almost like arbitraging and saying like, hey, here's an opportunity that we have to have impact, but at the same time income. Is that something that you all recommend, or would you say because of the zoning laws and everything else that it's better if you own the property?
Oh, well, I think it's going to actually depend on the circumstances. So for us, when we first got it, it just so happened when we got into the owner recovery homes, it just so happened that our house, it outgrew us. So we was just looking way to turn that into something outside of a rental property. But say, for instance, that's not your situation and you don't want to go put the 10% down and, things of that nature, 10, 20% down. The best thing for you to do maybe is to go get a rental property. And you just you speak to landlords to see if they want to become a master leaseholder, meaning you controlling everything, you're responsible for the repairs, things of that nature.
Yeah, not the structural repairs, but yeah. So a lot of our clients, we help since 2017, we've been helping other individuals open their own recovery homes, and majority of them were looking for rentals. So they can master lease. And we have properties that we rent. We own one, we rent the rest of our properties.
I love it. So talk to me about we brought up the repairs part of it. If somebody's like, well, because if I'm not going to live in it, and then you have obviously people who are recovering and there's chances of relapse and, one person in there that's doing something and it could maybe, set off a couple other people. So how do you guys, I guess, protect yourself from that, from any type of damage? Like, is that on you? Is that on the people who are living there? They signed some type of agreement in the beginning that they'll pay this money back, or maybe even with the treatment center?
Well, I'm going to start off the first part, then Georgia can close it out. So say one thing we want to let people know is a lot of when we have recovery homes since 2015. We never had any problems, no damages, no broken walls, no nothing. So one thing that we want to bring light to is that a lot of everybody in recovery, like the perception that we think is they just come in there, they gonna tear up everything, and they don't have any home training and things like that. But that's far from the truth. A lot of these individuals, they just had advice, and unfortunately, advice took over them. But we never had any problems where there was any damaged walls, no fighting, no killing. We never had any of these problems like that. So we just want to bring light to that, let people know the perception that you may have is not accurate.
Right. So it's like maybe when you drop your child off at school, that teacher lives at our house. We have nurses, we have teachers, we have mechanics, we have everybody under the sun at our house. We're like, okay, like we have, so it could be Bernard that would live in my house. You never know,
Right.
like your cashier. So when we sublease a house, we're the tenant. So if you rent from an apartment building and you hit the window or the wall and you do something, then me and Bernard are responsible for it. So that means we're responsible for our residents. So the lease we sign we are the tenant. So whatever that regular tenant landlord law is, we have to abide by that as the owners. But so if there's something structural, like the covenant of habitability, that's a tenant, that the landlord has those covenants that they have to, structural things that it's their responsibility to repair and things like that. So landlords still have to do that. So anything that we as tenants, meaning me and Bernard, and we're responsible for our residents, we will be responsible for that. As Bernard said, we don't have that issue. What we do is we know normal wear and tear. We have 12 people in our house, so it's going to be beyond normal wear and tear. So if we notice that the toilet's kind of weak, it's a business expense. We're going to get a nice toilet that takes so many flushes. We're going to switch out that washer and dryer maybe for a regular commercial one that still looks nice and new, not a coin operated one. When people move into our house, it has to be like, it just opened today. So if the wall gets marked up, we're cleaning the walls, if there's anything, we're keeping it up, because whenever someone comes, this is their house. So we need them to feel like I could do this for the next 6 months or 12 months for my recovery and focus on myself. So we have it looking nice. So we're not even worried about the repairs. If one of our residents so since we're not tenant landlord law and we are recovery homes, you don't use drugs. So we'll get a call like, I used today. We're like, okay, we're sorry. Is there anything we can do? They're like, no, I've been talking to my counselor. They'll come and get their stuff and leave, because you can't live in our house unless you're 14 days is sober. So we're not like busting them out like, you used drugs today. They're like telling us, because part of the recovery is being part of the honest program. You're honest. That's part of not having addiction behavior, that you're really honest and open, and you built a bond with other people. So you feel like, I don't want them to be the reason why they slip. So our residents are telling us they use. If they use and they know that they're going to be asked to leave, and they accept that.
Okay, so like the only time we really reach out to the landlords per se is if it's like something major, like a roof leak, or the air conditioners go out or something like that. But any of that minor stuff, though, we handle everything on our own. And that's a great thing for a landlord who rents it out to someone who wants to turn that home into a treatment center. They're not really dealing with none of the liability that comes along with being a landlord.
Yeah. Because it's a business for us still. So of course we want to look nice and cute, and we're maybe changing the little hand. I'm girly. So I want to change the little handles out and do this and do that. And that cosmetic stuff, landlords don't do it cosmetic anyways. But yeah.
Got it. So they got that buffer. And now for you all, do you have them sign contracts or leases or anything that they will stay for 6 months? Because if they come in and they say maybe they use within the first 30 days because, it was their first time into a different environment. So they use, and then maybe they have to stay out for 14 days, as you said. So let's say that they think they need another week. So they only stayed there for 7 days. But then they say, hey, you know what? It's maybe just not the right time for us. And we're going to, do they still have to pay any type of money? Do you guys have that in your agreements up front? What does that look like?
So being a recovery home operator, you kind of make your own rules around that. So people sometimes will charge a sober deposit, and you can pick that amount, whatever that looks like, $300, $500, the same as $650 or $750, whatever your bed amount's going to be. So So if someone relapsed and they paid their $650 on the first and it's the 12th, they don't get anything refunded, and then they'll lose that deposit. So it's a month-to-month agreement we have. It's not a lease. And our agreements is basically saying like you pay your rent, your housing fee on the first, making sure your curfew, going to treatment. If you don't go to treatment, inform us. No sleeping in the living room, like some basic house stuff. But overall, unfortunately, if that person uses and leaves out, the phone's ringing. So you're normally like, yeah, we don't have any space. They're like, well, will you have some in 2 weeks? It's like, you actually might have to call every day. But not that we have that turnover like that. We do get people that will come in, and within the first 30 days, you're going to know, like, someone might come in and they're not ready for recovery. And they don't want to clean their drawers. They want to leave their room unless you're just like, you know, this really isn't a good fit. Like, you don't have to be here. We don't want you to be here if we're going to go back and forth. That's what we're not going to do. Are you going to clean this today? Are you going to do this today? We're not doing that. Like, we're not a program where we have to do that back and forth and you're here because we have to provide this service to you. So we don't have that piece. So we have a resident now at our house that's been with us for over 2 years. She says she's not leaving the house. She pays $750 on the first. No, like she's never leaving. And we've had long-term residents, and most residents stay at least 6-7 months. Yeah, 6 to 8 months. Yeah.
Wow. So if somebody's looking at this right now and they say, I don't have a property, but I'm going to go to Craigslist, I'm going to go to Zillow, I'm going to find a 5-bedroom house that's currently for rent, or maybe it was expired, canceled, they couldn't sell it, and I'm going to talk to the landlord. My pitch to that person is, hey, I understood you couldn't get this rented or you couldn't get it sold, and I'm telling them up front, here's what I want to do. We're going to have an impact together. We're also I'm going to give you guaranteed rent of X amount, and everything over is going to be mine. I'm going to handle all of the liability, or not the structural, but I'm going to handle any of the cosmetics, all those other things. You won't have to have any phone calls. And then that's how I'm going to go ahead and get this started. Then I'm going to start marketing to treatment centers or anyone else who I'm going to put it out there on Facebook. If you know someone that's in their transition period or in a recovery stage, I have affordable and suitable housing for them. Let's talk. Is that correct?
But you will contact that city to say, hey, what's the requirements? Because I'm going to have more than 4 people in my home. So I want to make sure I get that taken care of. So
That's first.
Yeah, that's the first to make sure. You know, because in different city, it varies. Like in St. Paul, it's like they don't want a recovery home within 350 feet. But in Minneapolis, you can have it next door, you know?
A recovery home within 350 feet of what?
Another recovery home, which is not big, you know, it's not far, a big distance, but it varies by literally city by city. It's different. Some cities would be like, okay, it's no different from a rental application. So we just helped a couple. The landlord already has the rental application, so they don't have to do anything because they're like, we don't have a reasonable accommodation process. So it's the same process as the rental application. We're like, well, this is a win-win because the landlord already has it to rent to you, so you're clear. There's nothing you have to do.
Yeah. Like all those different examples, like so St. Paul and Minneapolis, it's a difference. It's like a 10-mile difference from Minneapolis to Brooklyn Park. It's like another 7 miles. So like 7 mile difference can mean a world of things.
Yeah. So the city, the reasonable accommodation, that's the first thing, and then from there, yes, treatment centers. Like I said, unfortunately, they're packed, they're full, you know. It's good that people want to make a difference and change their lives, you know. And there's so much drug and alcohol use going on. But yes, you would target or network with different treatment centers, let them know, have your website on, people, you know, go into it. And we're like, people move into houses and share rooms. Like they want to share bathrooms and share kitchens. That's part of the recovery community.
Got it. Wow. That's so interesting. I'm sure, like I said, a lot of heads right now are like, oh my God, I didn't even know that this was possible. My question, I guess, though, is the landlords ever say no? That they're like, nah, I don't want to be a part of this?
Yeah, so it was like, in our e-course, we talk about this a little bit too, though. Like it was a time where we got the number from Craigslist. It was a 4-bedroom. we got a whole system how we do as far as like reaching out to landlords with a certain script and everything like that. So we reached out to this landlord. I called them and gave him what we was trying to do. He just hung up on click. You know what I'm saying?
You
So
call
yeah. So then like about 10, 20 minutes later, he called back apologizing. He was like, "Oh, what you guys are doing is a great thing because actually my ex-wife died from an overdose." So once he sat down and thought about it, maybe even reflected about his wife and things of that nature, we met with him the next day and we actually signed the lease for that property. So some people is good because they know about it, and some people who not familiar with the recovery home industry, the business of it, some of it they scared of. They think about the negativity that come with it,
or they think that we're housing people who's using drugs. Like, explain to them they're not using drugs. Now, if they was using drugs, that may be a different story. Like, they're not drinking. They don't drink alcohol. They're not using drugs. If that's what they're gonna do, we're gonna ask to leave. So it's no different from when you bring a stranger in your house who's having parties and things like that and drinking, and maybe you think your house you're gonna have 3 people living there, but there's 10 people living in the house, and the property's getting messed up. So once we kind of lay it out to landlords, they're like, that makes sense,
And then once we tell them to either go to our website or come to one of our other recovery homes and do a tour. Like Georgia said earlier, all of our homes you can always come to our homes 24/7. They always are going to be clean. I say our house is going to be cleaner than most people who not even in recovery homes. That's the reason they love their homes and they want to take care of it though. So it's always move-in ready no matter what.
Got it. Now, do you put the burden on them, or the responsibility? I won't say burden, the responsibility on them to clean the home, the kitchen. I know some of them, they have a lot of time on their hands, so I'm sure they might even have a little bit of OCD where they just want to clean up. Or is that your responsibility to send cleaning people in there every day or every week, to clean up the home and make sure that it is, livable and suitable for anyone?
So it's the residents' responsibility. It's their house.
That's one of the things that's in the
house. Yeah. So they switch it every week. We change chores every week. We have a chore list laid out. They take turns doing the chores. So it's their house. They don't have any problem cleaning the house. Like it's their house. Like they're
what about like mowing the lawn or shoveling? Is that something that you all basically hire?
Yeah. So
like with the snow plowing, I'm gonna be honest, I do that part though.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah, but it's sometimes
and we own that property, but when we rent, we negotiate with the landlord, like to see what's what. But like I tell people, our clients that we help are getting recovery homes, like even if they do cut the grass and shovel, you're gonna want to still do it more, just because it's how you put a little bit more care into your business, So you're gonna put mulch down, you're gonna do the landscaping. Maybe you're like they're not cutting, he or she's not cutting the grass enough. Or we do have residents shovel the walkways, and normally there's a smoking area outside. A lot of people who's not doing drugs and alcohol, it's coffee and cigarettes. So they have their outside area that they're shoveling and things like that. But yeah, the residents are taking trash out, they're mopping. Oh, so-and-so didn't do their chore today. We're like, okay, we'll talk to them.
Right.
Okay. Maybe you should let them know,
Yeah.
But how they run the house, like after you cook, you wash your dish, dry, and put away. Like it's structured living. Like you're not going into a pen. There's someone who keeps leaving the light on. Who's leaving the light on? And They don't even pay the light bill, okay? So we're like, thank you. Thank you.
No, that's super solid.
Yeah.
Super solid. So another question that I'm sure somebody's wondering right now, and it popped up in my head, is how do you screen tenants? Because if someone's in a recovery stage, what if they have a record? Is that something you guys are doing? Like, obviously, because then it means like you guys might have a house that might be around a school. Does that ever come up where people are asking? I know you said that they're teachers. They're, all these people, they're real people. They have hearts, and some of them have never been convicted of anything. They just got some bad advice and came into a bad environment. But what about the people that do have some type of a record and even, worse, a felony? Like, what do you do with people like that?
So once again, as a recovery home operator, you decide. Do you want someone who has a felony? Do you want to do background checks? Or who do you want to accept into your your house. So you do your own screening process and intake. And what does that look like? In our home, we know that when you're using drugs and alcohol, then you probably are going to do things that's related to breaking the law. Maybe you have DWI, maybe you just was robbing people trying to get your fix. So we have people who come from prison. We may communicate. We'll ask them, like, have you ever been involved with the law? What does that look like? We have people who have to go to court. Maybe they got to turn themselves in. We had a resident who had to like go to the workhouse every weekend for like 5 or 6 weeks. So the thing with us is, since we don't have to like literally evict you, we want to give you that second chance because you're saying you don't want to do this anymore. So you come into the house. Now, if you come into the house and you're still not, we're going to be like, time to go, you have to leave. And we don't have to say, now we got to go to court to ask you to leave. You don't steal in this house. You're not going to fight in this house. You're not going to call a name in the house. Those are, in our house, those are all reasons why we'll actually leave immediately.
Got
like,
it.
we're, depending on what
And
time
you
we're
put
like,
that up
right,
front that there's no, you don't get
it's
a
up
48
in that,
notice.
in that housing agreement, in that housing agreement. So if someone comes in with a felony or without a felony, we're going to still do the same procedure if you do something in our home. So we want to know, so we could communicate with your probation officer and things like that. But it's not for us to determine what kind of person you are. So we try not to focus on who they was before they came into our house, just the behavior when you're in our house. We will communicate. Yeah, we want to know if you got to turn yourself in. We want to know if you have a warrant. And like I said, in Minnesota, Shakopee, they're sending people to our home. They may be on an ankle bracelet. They may have to breathe in the thing in their car. Is once you get into our house, how are you going to act? That's what we go off of.
Because our thing is all about giving people second chances, though.
Mm-hmm.
So giving people second chances, so they might have went to jail, they might have did whatever, but like understanding just certain situations, we into giving people second chances, and we value that aspect of it. So you might have made a mistake 3-4 years ago, but that don't mean you're the same person today.
Right. And then about like having kids around and things like that. So if we actually never had that issue where someone came in and had like the charge, what is that, like molestation, something like that, where you need to register your name or sex offense or something. We haven't had that. I think there may be houses that may do that, but of course there's going to be a process where they have to have this address approved, and then if the probation officer approves it, they send that stuff out. So there's a process for that for any location. So they would have to do that regardless if they're at our sober house or a regular rental. But our recovery home, we actually never had that case. So if it came in, like we may have a call and we're like, okay, baby. So this person, like if a person has a lot of mental illness going on, they may need a higher level of care. So after we talk to them, we're like, you know what? We recommend that you probably go to a different kind of house for now, because we're not waking you up. We're not giving you your medication, like the stuff that you need. It's a higher level of care than what you could do here. It's independent. So at that time, we tell them that it's not going to be a good fit and we're not going to accept them. So I guess if we ever came into that situation, depending on that, like we got to register, we personally probably would be like, it's not the best fit, because we know there's kids in our cul-de-sac. So us personally, we would say, oh no.
Kids in our cul-de-sac, but it's also individuals bringing kids over.
Yeah, an individual brings their kids over. So we personally would tell them no, but when they are coming, they have an agent who's telling us everything.
Got it. Cool. No, that's such solid information. I think that you guys definitely have a niche in the marketplace that a lot of people don't know about. And it's something that, just like you said from the beginning, you have an opportunity to not only have income, but really a lot of impact, because a lot of people need a second chance. And that doesn't matter where you are, right? Some people are wrongfully convicted, but they have to make a way out of it. And so knowing that they have support like you or whoever else is putting on a recovery home or a transition home, that's something that's so solid. So it's been definitely a phenomenal conversation. I guess my question is, you guys are so much wiser now than when you first started, but I always like to ask the question, and I know that a lot of people say they wouldn't change anything if they could go back in time because it got them to where they are today. But if there is one thing that you wish that you would have implemented sooner to accelerate your path on your journey and your dream to where you are today, what would that one thing be?
From a recovery home aspect?
Just from a business, from a mindset, like what would that thing be? We all have been told something and we look back on our journey and we say,
I'm gonna be like, for me, honestly though, I would have really like took social media way more serious though. And the stuff that we're doing now, as far as like the e-courses, because we didn't help over 40 some people just in our area though.
Mm-hmm.
I would have like been tried to do the e-course and finish that e-course 4 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So just
We
from
were
that,
stretching ourselves
yeah,
thin,
we were
trying to
stretching
do.
ourselves thin, but if we're gonna stretch ourselves thin, we might as well stretch it thin where it's gonna help more people. And then we just got something online, a presence where it can just be purchased 24/7 all day with all this being there.
Love it.
Right. And for me, I think that since it was a field that we did not know, it was like walking on tiptoes. What can I do? What can I do? Instead of just being true to ourselves, and saying, hey, like I have a son, we have a son that has struggled with using drugs and popping pills. He's, younger and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, it's like, what would I want? How would I want this house to be for my son? Or if it was my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and not kind of seeing like what's out there, just being so scared to do stuff versus like, how do I want to live? I'm going to have a house of how we want to live and stop trying to mimic these other things that's happening, especially like the color of my skin. I'm Black, and what's working for other things, like what's going to work for me,
Right.
and us being true to ourselves and not, it's an untouched market, but just making it ours.
Yeah.
Right, and that's another thing. That's another reason why we want to expand from just like a smaller market just to a national aspect of it. It's for two things. Like for one is to have other bring more attention to Black people for them to be recovery home owners and just the potential income that they can make and helping people. But then on the other side, showing other Black people if you need to go to treatment because now you have a face where we telling you get out of treatment. We know that all the steps that you need to do to become more successful in this community. And I think a lot of times for us as, just honestly just being Black, we don't have those certain faces. And that's some of the stigma that we're trying to bring light to, even in the treatment centers that we deal with. Like you got to hire more Black counselors or more minority counselors, because a lot of these Black people or minorities, when they come here, they're not going to stay here because they don't have anybody that they can relate to.
And
Like
the culture is different.
the culture is just way different. So like, I'm not saying that race is everything, but you got to make it fair across the board.
Yeah. That's one thing I guess we didn't tap into, but when these residents, they come and they stay in your homes, are you helping them find jobs or is that like, nah, that's not a part of what we do. We just make sure that you have a safe, suitable, affordable housing? Or what are the other things that you all try to provide to any guest that comes and stays with you?
So the first thing is so we have house meetings once a week. Every second Tuesday, we have somebody from the community come in, whether it's yoga, looking for housing. Like we partner with the organization that we send people to for like, we want you to grow. They'll look for housing, if it's credit, financial needs, schooling, food, different things. So we know that the recovery journey, not using drugs and alcohol, sometimes it's a band-aid for all the other things that they're dealing with in this thing called life. So maybe they don't got their kids. Maybe there was an abusive situation. Like there's so many things. They just happen to use drugs and alcohol, but that was just the tip. So all that underneath the tipberg is the things that they're struggling with and trying to get over. So we don't provide services, but we do have resources. We have a resource board. If we're in house meetings and they're like, I'm really looking for a job, we're like, hey, contact this person, contact this person. So we do bring speakers in and try to give all the resources for whatever it is. We have a lot of women who's dealing with trying to get their kids back. What does that look like? Anger management classes, or ones that used to do sex trafficking in that field. So it's like, how do we connect with the organization for them? Maybe it's an eating habit that they have. So there's so much stuff that we're just connecting, like call this number, or maybe we can have these people come in and speak to everybody as a whole. So we do provide resources for whatever they're dealing with. We want to provide that resource.
Love it. I love it. This has been such a phenomenal conversation. For anybody that is super inspired by you, just like I am, and love what you're doing, but they have that little voice in their head, which maybe keeps them from not being able to do what you're doing. And that little voice says that they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources. What's that one final thing that you would leave them with to get them to just take action?
I mean, for me, I always say, like, I'm gonna be honest, how I look at things, I always say I'm not the smartest person in the world, though. But I face my fears, though. So whatever it is, even if it's like I gotta climb up the Rocky Mountains, the biggest thing for me to do is just don't worry about the process that it's gonna take me. Just go do it, though. And everything, when everything starts after that, then I know everything gonna fall into place, though. But if I'm just thinking about, yo, I gotta climb 10,000 feet up, I'm not ever gonna do it, though. So I just say, just go out there and take actions, learn from the situation, because like, I'm gonna be honest, how I talk to my son, I always tell him, don't worry about the failure aspect of it. Failure is a part of anything that you're gonna do. And when you fail, it's way better than winning anyway, because you're gonna know what you gotta do to be better next time. So that's what I always say. And
for me, I'm an employee. I come from an employee background, and this is the entrepreneur. But as an employee, like I had to tell myself, if I could go and work a 9 to 5 every day, why can't I do that for myself?
Right.
Like I get up every day to go to work. I could do that for myself. Why am I any different? I'll do it for somebody else, but not for myself. So I just have to put that confidence to be like, I can be my own person to, so if I can do it for you, I can do it for myself.
Facts. I love it. For anybody who wants to stay connected, we're going to make sure we put all of your links in our show notes on our website and everywhere else. But for anybody who wants to stay connected with you, where can they find you at?
all right, so the great thing what we got going on, we just, like we said earlier, we just released a e-course on March 1st.
It's self-paced
e-course.
Okay.
It's showing everybody like what they need to do to open a successful recovery home in any city and any state. So they can go to cvhrecovery.com and purchase that e-course. On social media, Instagram, we at cvh.recovery, and on Facebook, we at cvh recovery.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, again, we'll make sure we put all of those links in the show notes. And I want to be the first one, if no one else has told you today, my brother, my sister, I appreciate you and thank you. Just as they said, DreamNation, you got to take action. Don't worry about if it's 10,000 feet up. You just got to take that one step, because if you don't, that dream that you have, it will only merely be a fantasy. That's all for this one. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
I appreciate it.
If you've gotten anything out of this episode, do me a favor and head on over to iTunes if you have access and leave me a review. My whole goal is to make sure that I'm serving you all the right way. You're my tribe. You're who I care about. You're why I do this. So if you want to give me any type of thanks, or if you want to let me know whatever your thoughts or your feelings are from this episode or any other episode that you've listened to, leave me a rating or review. And also, if you're looking for more tips, strategies, and even resources when it comes to leveling up your real estate game, head on over to DreamNationAcademy.com. We have a really cool real estate section there, and it's something that I wish that I would have had when I first got started in real estate. So that's DreamNationAcademy.com. Don't wait. I'll see you on the other side.